If there's one word that could be used to describe Arthur Fleck's Joker, it'd be this one: strange. Putting aside the random fits of laughter and hallucinations of romance, there's something about the Joker that's not just strange in character, but strangely relatable. The macabre displays of a man slowly slipping into the abyss of nihilism in a godforsaken society presents us a haunting image of despair that we see shades of in our lives. Today we'll take a closer look at how the Joker struck such a strong nerve amongst so many and answer the question, why is the Joker literally me? Arthur, in blunt terms, is a societal reject. Living in the dredges of Gotham with his bedridden mother, he struggles to gain any standing of stability and respect. He's always bearing the brunt of society's brutality, as seen in the introduction where Arthur gets stomped out by a group of kids and ironically gets punished for it. Moreover, Arthur's poor mental health attributed to his laughing condition and childhood trauma only further alienates him. His life is stuck in a purgatory of loneliness and madness. As director Todd Phillips says, he wanted the Joker to be purely id. Diving into this concept, Freud notes how the id represents the part of the mind that contains our deviant primal emotions such as anger, rage, and frustration. That's exactly what we see Arthur embody. The turmoil of his life has left him a pessimistic shell full of resentment. Likewise, Freud theorized that our id balances out with our superego, aka our behavior and morality police. The tenets that govern our superego are often societal conditions of law and order. However, for Arthur, he has lost all hope in society, thereby extinguishing the flames of his superego. As such, Arthur is left living with an unbalanced and unleashed id. Such a vivid description of this trait explains a large part of why the Joker is so relatable. Many of us struggle with an imbalance of our id, clouding our thoughts and impeding our well-being. We all can relate to the feeling of social ostracization and not feeling wanted and respected by those around us. With rates of loneliness and mental health issues through the roof in recent years, so many of us are losing faith in society the same way Arthur has lost faith in Gotham. The depressive rides on the buses, the soul-sucking and degrading jobs, the lack of respect and companionship, all of what we see Arthur deal with, it potently resonates with us. Whether we accept it or not, we very much share the same struggles as Arthur. It's important to note that Arthur isn't a bad person. He doesn't have any evil intentions or commit any crimes. Rather, he openly says on multiple occasions that all he really wants to do is spread joy and laughter. Funny enough, Arthur has a hero's arc as he aims to be the bringer of joy and happiness in a world of dreary misery. He wishes to change the world so that others may not endure the trauma he has experienced. His dream for this very reason is to be a stand-up comedian. It is this mission of Arthur's that prevents him from becoming the Joker. Even with everything falling apart around him, Arthur's passion for comedy along with his love for his mother give him a sense of purpose that allows him to put up with the despair of life. He's hanging on by just a thread. Just like Arthur, many of us in our darkest moments cling to the slightest silver lining of light to propel us through the misery of our existence. Just the tiniest inkling of hope that maybe someday things will get better is all we have going for us many a times. For kids in school getting bullied, eating lunch alone, and stressed to their wits' ends, sometimes all they have is a bond with a family member at the end of the day to keep pushing through. For a struggling actor or musician, facing rejection day after day, working menial jobs just like Arthur to stay afloat, and not having anyone, even their friends, support their work, sometimes a pipe dream of one day making it big is all they have to keep going. Arthur longs for acceptance. He yearns for someone to see the good that he believes he can bring to this world. Unfortunately, no one ever does. When he's being serious, they laugh at him, but when he's telling jokes, they ignore him. Overlooked, ridiculed, beaten down, and humiliated. This is Arthur Fleck. Sadly, this is also many of us. After getting attacked, Arthur's co-worker Randall gives him a gun to protect himself. Unfortunately, the gun slips out while Arthur is at work and gets him fired. With his only real job now gone, Arthur starts to unravel. On a subway ride home, Arthur is attacked by 3 young wealthy Wall Street bros who work for Thomas Wayne. Just like the kids in the introduction, the 3 men treat Arthur as a joke and a punching bag, wailing away at him and mocking him for his clown makeup. This time, however, things go a little differently. Arthur suddenly starts shooting the boys, killing all 3 of them. This marks the beginning of his transformation into the Joker.
They don't give a shit about people like you, Arthur.
Gotham has an ideal image of itself, and it's clear that Arthur isn't included in the picture. His whole life he's tried to squeeze himself into the corner of the frame, but now he recognizes there will never be space for him. Therefore, he begins tearing the picture apart. The sentiments expressed by Arthur here fall heavily in line with Nietzsche's writings on morality. He defines morality as the idiosyncrasy of decadents having the hidden desire to revenge themselves upon life. In other words, morality is neither rational nor absolute, Rather, it is inconsistent and self-serving to a select portion of people. A perfect example is how the three Wall Street bros were memorialized on the news and the Joker was scored as a villain even though he was acting in self-defense. The truth of the matter does not supersede the narrative. Much of our moral compass as a society exists in this gray zone. We'd like to believe morality is upheld by an objective system of law and order, but time and time again we are shown how the goalposts of morality are moved to benefit a select few. In 2008, during the housing market crisis, Wall Street elites carried out some of the most heinous acts of fraud and criminal activity, leading to the decimation of the financial sector. Rather than facing the appropriate punishment for their wickedness, only one banker was sentenced to jail. The banks were bailed out by taxpayer money, and many top bankers actually received bonuses from the bailout money. On the other hand, millions of everyday citizens who were on the right side of morality lost their savings, homes, and jobs. The idiosyncrasies of society's moral compass left many of us bearing the brunt of the decadent's revenge, just like Arthur. After the subway shooting, Arthur's life quickly starts plummeting, pushing him closer and closer to the ledge of insanity. Social services funding gets cut in the city, leaving Arthur without a psychiatrist to prescribe medication. Thomas Wayne punches Arthur, rejecting his claim that he is his father, and Arthur finds out his short-lived hope of romance with his neighbor is all just a hallucination. Everything is burning to the ground, but Arthur still has his comedy dreams and gravely ill mother to cling on to. The final blows, however, are soon thrown. Arthur's stand-up clip appears on The Murray Show, only to have the host ridicule him, turning him into a televised laughingstock. The final straw then arrives when Arthur visits Arkham and discovers that he was adopted by his mother. His hero's arc has reached its last page, and the angel Arthur hoped to be has now fallen.
I used to think that my life was a tragedy. But now I realize it's a fucking comedy.
Self-destruction and self-affirmation often sprout from the same fork in the road. When the game of life has failed us, we have two choices: quit playing the game or rewrite the rules. Absolute nihilism has taken a hold of Arthur, leaving him with two options: killing himself or setting himself free.
All it takes is one bad day. That's how far the world is from where I am. Just one bad day.
What makes the Joker so riveting is the notion that we aren't far removed from becoming one ourselves. For anyone who commits suicide, for any mass shooter, they all have reached a similar crossroads we see Arthur end up on. Whether we want to admit it or not, we are fully aware that Arthur's story can become ours one day as we see the harrowing reality of the Joker's transformation in all corners of our society. In simple terms, if we truly hit rock bottom, what would we do? Arthur chooses to embrace the comedy of chaos rather than succumbing to the turpitude of tragedy. He is no longer a laughingstock, he is the Joker. Arthur's subway murders serve not only as the catalyst for his own transformation, but the uprising of Gotham's proletariats. At Bruce Wayne's campaign launch, Arthur witnesses how the Joker face paint he wore during his killings has now become an emblem of rebellion against the elite. Seeing the collective power Arthur has instilled among the working class of Gotham provides him a sense of accomplishment and acknowledgement of purpose, as he sees he does in fact have the capacity to enact societal change. Arthur's mission earlier was to spread joy and laughter to quell the misery so many others feel in this decrepit society. This mission, however, begins to reorientate itself as Arthur realizes maybe what the people need isn't a laugh to avoid their misery, but to have the strength to stand up against the forces instituting their misery. Rather than sedate the masses through laughing away their menial existence, he begins to realize he can enlighten the masses to affirm their existence through, as Nietzsche says, adopting their own will to power. What Arthur taps into here is Jung's concept of the collective shadow. Jung theorizes that consciousness does not operate solely on the individual level, but there also exists a collective consciousness that we can tap into. When considering the shared fervor people experience rooting for their favorite sports teams, the harmonizing experience of singing along with a crowd to one's favorite artist, or the commonality of archetypal stories such as the hero's journey across distant cultures, it's not hard to see evidence of a collective consciousness. Jung dives a level deeper, noting how there also exists a collective shadow, a shared collection of deviant, dark, and rebellious sentiment we can access on a meta level. The Occupy Wall Street movement is a great example of how the masses were rallied against the elite through tapping into society's collective shadow. Oddly similar to the protests depicted in The Joker, the 2008 financial crisis emboldened the rebellious spirit of disestablishment and anti-authoritarian sentiment in society's collective shadow, prompting thousands of people to rally together in defiance against the shady business of the elite. Similarly, the Black Lives Matter protests in the summer of 2020 instituted a similar movement of the collective shadow to sweep across the globe in unionized protests against police brutality and systemic racism. The severity of these protests further speaks to how strong of an impact catching a wave of the collective shadow can have in mobilizing the masses. Arthur's curtain call shows him basking in the glory of his actions. He is transformed not into a villain, but an anti-hero. He fights for the same people Batman fights for, just from the other side of the frame. He becomes emboldened knowing that he's not alone in his feelings regarding Gotham. The masses feel the same way. They recognize the failure of society's power structures in providing for the people and see them as purely self-serving institutions. While Batman upholds justice, the Joker is disillusioned by justice. The Joker recognizes the self-serving nature of its moral underpinnings and chooses chaos as a central tenet. The Joker strikes a resounding chord with audiences for this very reason. For many of us disillusioned by the world we live in, we secretly revel in the sight of society's pretty facade fading away. We find ourselves still having to bail out failing banks with our tax money, stripped of our jobs, locked in our houses during COVID, and stuck with the same phony political rhetoric every 4 years. We know we're caught in a prism of subjugation, and the sight of someone fighting back against the debilitating nature of society resonates with us. The Joker has spoken to the shadow within us all. Arthur's descent into chaos presents us a haunting image of a rock-bottom world we know is creeping around the corner. The relatability of Arthur's struggles gives us a mirror image to witness the shadow within us all come to light. With such a brilliant portrayal of this iconic character, we're left asking ourselves one question: is Arthur Fleck literally me? Just think about it.